All right. Our final story of the night is going to focus on a couple of health issues, health stories that I want to talk about because, the conscious resistance is about waking up to the fact that there are various systems, government, corporations, big tech, education system, controlled establishment media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and pushing back against those systems, finding a way to live without them. But also the conscious resistance is about our internal world and our physical health as well. This is why I go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder, but I do love working out. I go biking. I go on walks. I want to stay physically, mentally, and spiritually fit because in order to survive and thrive what we're facing, guys, you're going to need to be able to be all of those things. I'm not saying you need to be a bodybuilder, especially if that's just, if you're not able-bodied or if you're a little bit older, but being mentally and physically and spiritually sound as much as possible is absolutely key. And it's something I take very seriously. So sometimes I think people get obsessed with the conspiracy side of things and the true crime and the research, and they don't take time to take care of themselves. The self-care is important. The way what you eat, your diet, your physical exercise, etc. And also the tools that you're using, how are they impacting you? How are they hurting you? So this next story deals with that. This is a new study that I had shared with me, University of Chicago Press Journals, Brain Drain, how the mere presence of one's own smartphone reduces available cognitive capacity. You will find this linked in the show notes. There's an abstract. You can read as much as you want about this. I just wanted to highlight a couple of quotes from this. Again, this is from University of Chicago Journals. And it says here, quote, "The proliferation of smartphones represents a profound shift in the relationship between consumers and technology. Across human history, the vast majority of innovations have occupied a defined space in consumers' lives. They have been constrained by the functions they perform and the locations they inhabit." That just basically means when you're using technology, it wasn't all encompassing. It wasn't something you carried and took with you everywhere like a smartphone. And smartphones didn't interact with every area of your life. It was just a tool. It may have been a digital tool, but it was just a tool. And so now smartphones have kind of changed that. It says, quote, "Smartphones transcend these limitations. They are consumers' constant companions, offering unprecedented connection to information, entertainment, and to each other. They play an integral role in the lives of billions of consumers worldwide, and as a result, have vast potential to influence consumer welfare for both better and for worse. The present research identifies a potentially costly side effect of the integration of smartphones into daily lives: smartphone-induced brain drain. We provide evidence that the mere presence of a consumer's smartphones can adversely affect 2 measures of cognitive capacity: available working memory capacity and the functional fluid intelligence, without interrupting sustained attention or increasing the frequency of phone-related thoughts." So they're saying just having the phone in the room is affecting your available working memory. Like, you might not be picking up the phone every moment, but just your brain's awareness of it can affect your working memory and something they call functional fluid intelligence. Consumers who were engaged with ongoing cognitive tasks were able to keep their phones not just out of their hands, but also out of their conscious minds. However, the mere presence of these devices left fewer attentional resources available for engaging with the task at hand. So basically, if you think about your brain having only limited resources that it can give attention on one thing, even if we're multitasking, I can multitask, but something's always going to suffer. And just by having your phone in the room, your brain, some part of it is aware of the phone and may be tuned into it in some way, and you are given what they call fewer attentional resources for whatever task you're doing. And it continues here. Further, we find that the effects of smartphone salience on available cognitive capacity are moderated by individual differences in the personal relevance of these devices, operationalized in terms of smartphone dependence. So what that means is the available cognitive capacity, so your available brain power, it's going to be affected by your individual differences and preferences for your devices. So how, like, for example, if you're somebody like me, I don't have a smartphone, I use my computer, but I sure carry my laptop around with me everywhere I go because it's essential and very relevant to my work and to my life. So it's saying the effects of these available cognitive capacity, it kind of is dependent on how much you use your device and what you use the device for. It says those who depend most on their devices suffer the most from their salience and benefit the most from their absence. So if you're more dependent on the devices, when they're gone, you actually seem to, according to the study, have more cognitive resources and benefit better. So the people who are using it the most are the ones who benefit the most from it being removed. The role of dependence in determining mere presence effects suggests that similar cognitive costs would not be occurred by the presence of just any product, device, or even a phone. We submit that few, if any, stimuli are both so personally relevant and so perpetually present as a consumer's own smartphones. However, we leave open the door for our insights to apply more broadly to future connective technologies that may become equally central to consumers' lives as technology continues to advance. So basically they're saying, like, right now, nothing else seems to affect the cognitive costs. There's not as much cognitive costs incurred as a smartphone, not even a regular phone or any other device or product. For whatever reason, this black mirror that so many of you hold and keep and use, it affects our brains in a very unique way. And they're calling it a brain drain. Brain drain. It says, again, the study is called "The Mere Presence of One's Own Smartphone Reduces Available Cognitive Capacity." And I'm sure some of you have your own personal anecdotes on that and can attest to that, or maybe you've seen it with your children and you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I tell people I don't have a phone, because although they're greatly useful in many cases, I am already so plugged into my work with my laptop that I don't want to be more plugged in with a phone. And so whenever I leave the house, I don't keep a phone with me. Nobody can get in touch with me. I love it. And sometimes it can make things challenging or difficult, but it's what I want to do to make sure that I'm not having my brain drained all the time. So that one is an interesting study. Again, it'll be linked in the show notes. One other study on health I wanted to show you, published in the journal Environmental Health just last week, the sugar industry's efforts to manipulate research on fluoride effectiveness and toxicity, a 90-year history. This is by Christopher Neurath. I think I'm going to interview him very soon, because I know he's a member of the Fluoride Action Network, who are the people who are leading the lawsuit. Excuse me, scrolling. I know that makes some of y'all dizzy. Trying to find his information here. Yeah, so you can find this research, and they've got an article on their website on the Fluoride Action Network, but it's a great report. I mean, it's a study, but it's really a deep report, and they've got, of course, an abstract, the method, and the results. And the results, we'll just read them. It says, records dating back to the 1930s demonstrate the sugar industry, sometimes in cooperation with dental interests, exaggerated fluoride's effectiveness and downplayed safety concerns. The sugar industry's science manipulation campaign preceded the better-known tobacco industry campaign defending cigarettes. Key leaders of the sugar industry's campaign transferred to the tobacco industry, which then adopted many of the sugar industry's tactics and financed research from some of the same sugar-conflicted scientists. Currently, a prominent safety issue with fluoride is developmental neurotoxicity. Evidence indicates that researchers with undisclosed conflicts of interest with sugar and allied industries provided biased reviews downplaying this risk for the last 90 years. Conclusion. Recently available records reveal a long history of the sugar industry distorting fluoride science. Many of the sugar industry's tactics were later adopted by the tobacco industry and mirrored by industries involved in asbestos, lead, pesticides, climate change denial, according to this person, and others. Researchers and policymakers should be aware of this distorted scientific record regarding fluoride effectiveness and toxicity. So, I mean, honestly, as I'm reading that to you guys, I'm like, damn, I need to turn that into a documentary. That sounds like a pretty important story. I've known about, if you've ever read The Fluoride Deception, you've kind of known about some of the different industries, obviously the dental industry and others, the phosphate mining and aluminum industry, who have stood to benefit by playing down the dangers and the problems with fluoride, with hydrofluorosilicic acid and its impact on human health. But this sounds like another great review. Again, it will be in the show notes. I encourage you guys to check that out. I'm going to see if I can interview Christopher and maybe turn that into a little mini documentary. That might be fun. So yeah, that'll all be in the show notes.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.